Hello. I've been getting a lot of requests for new factoring methods, so this one is new to me. Let's take a look at the Po Shen Loh method. So let's say we're solving the equation x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Okay, the Po Shen Loh method is based on the concept that my two solutions, right, the two values of x that'll make this 0, are equidistant from the vertex of my parabola. So, not knowing anything about this parabola, I'm just going to make a little imaginary picture. All right, so if my vertex right here, well, we know that the x coordinate of that vertex is negative b over 2a, where the coefficient of my squared is my a, the coefficient of my x is my b, and my number term is my c. Okay, and then I also know that these 2 points, despite my drawing, are equidistant from this middle point. So if I say that each of those distances is the variable u, then I could define these two solutions as being negative b over 2a plus u or minus u. And then I also know that if I take my two solutions and I multiply them, I get the value of my C, right? That's that original method we're all familiar with of what adds to B but multiplies to C. Well, if these are the two values that add to my B, then if I take them and multiply them together, then I get my C. And I can see here that this is a difference of squares, right? So if I take these guys and write them out as my difference of squares, right, that would be my minus b over 2a squared minus my u squared equals c. So now let's go ahead and put some of the numbers in from this problem. So I can see that my b is negative 4, so minus b would be, okay, so if I start filling in my numbers here, negative b, so negative 4, that's just 4, over 2 times a, my a is just 1, squared minus u squared equals my c is negative 12. So 4 over 2, that's 2, 2 squared, that's 4. Subtract a 4 from both sides. Negative u squared equals negative 16. U squared equals 16. U equals plus or minus 4. Okay, well, and I actually already have the plus or minus there. So when I go to find my answers now, I'll remember that my negative 4 over 2 times 1, that was just 2. And then my plus or minus u is plus or minus 4. And so my two solutions are 6 and negative 2. And if I want to go ahead and test that, I can. So if I try that out with 6, that's 36 minus 24 minus 12 is 0, and that pans out. And if I try that again with negative 2, that winds up being a positive 4, and then plus an 8 minus 12 equals 0, and that also pans out. So that is the Po Shen Loh method on a relatively simple one. Now let's take a look at it on one that otherwise would have given us a whole lot of trouble. So let's say we want to apply it to x squared minus 2x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, again, basing it on the idea that our two answers will be equidistant from our vertex. So negative b over 2a plus or minus u is our starting place. Okay, our b is negative 2, our a is 1. So our two answers are 1 plus u and 1 minus u, and we know those multiply to our c. And so now if we use our difference of squares to solve this, 1 minus u squared equals negative 6. Subtract a 1 from both sides. So negative u squared equals negative 7. U squared equals 7. U equals plus or minus root 7. So our two answers, therefore, are 1 plus root 7 and 1 minus root 7. And when you multiply them out, you go ahead and get your C term, your negative 6. Now, let's say that this had been a positive 6 instead. So if we track that through, that gets us to this step of subtracting 1 and getting positive 5 and then dividing by the negative and getting negative 5? Okay, no problem. We just use our imaginary numbers. When we square root our negative 5, we get plus or minus I root 5. And so then when we put it into our answers, 1 plus I root 5, 1 minus I root 5. Let's do one more where we have a coefficient of our x squared, because that's the kind that usually freaks everybody out. And let's show how, although it can get a little fractiony, it still totally works using this method. Okay, 3x squared plus 11x minus 4 equals 0. The first thing I'm going to do in order to elegantly use this solution is I'm going to divide that a term through every term so that I have just a 1 as my coefficient. Okay, so when I divide everything by 3, my 0 remains 0, and the rest of them become over 3, and this becomes 1. And now I go back to my way of starting, right? Equidistant from negative b over 2a, that will be negative b over 2 times a is just 2 plus or minus some distance. Okay, I'm going to take those and simplify that. So negative 11 thirds divided by another 2. So my one solution times my other solution has to be my c, right? Now I'm going to use my difference of squares to simplify this. So 121 over 36 minus u squared equals negative 4 thirds. Ugly, sure. Doable, absolutely. So I subtract my 121/36 over to this side. I took my negative 4 thirds. I multiplied top and bottom to get a same denominator here. And so now this condenses to negative 169/36. I divide both sides by negative 1. I square root both sides. So I find that u equals plus or minus 13/6. And now I go back to this step, which had my two possible answers. And so I find that they are negative 11/6 plus 13/6, that's 2/6, that's 1/3. Or negative 11/6 minus 13/6, that's negative 24/6, or negative 4. And those are my two solutions to this using the Po Shen Loh method. Okay, it's a pretty great method, whether you have a 1 as an A, whether you have a number as an A, whether your answer is complex. All right, play around with that. Leave any questions you have in the comments. Take a look at my factoring playlist if you prefer something more old school like the AC method or the X method. Consider subscribing to my channel so you know when I put out a new video. And as always, keep on mathing.